What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to do a full story video. Now, usually a full story video for me is when I take a bunch of videos that tell one overarching story and combine them together into one big video. But today's full story video is going to be a tad bit different. You see, in the early 2000s, Jeph Loeb and Tim Sales came together to work on 4 different books: Daredevil Yellow, Spider-Man Blue, Hulk Gray, and Captain America White. And all 4 books told the early days of each of those heroes with a love interest or someone they care so much for. So for example, Peter Parker with Gwen Stacy, or Matt Murdock with Karen Page, or Bruce Banner with Betty Ross. Now for Steve Rogers, it was more Bucky, but more of like how close he was with Bucky. But either way, all 4 books told these great stories of the early days of our heroes. It was Jeph Loeb and Tim Sales giving us love letters for those characters right there. And honestly, they were all great. And so I decided to go ahead and put all 4 books into one big video. I do hope you enjoy today's comic book video. I do hope you enjoy today's video. So with the opening of this book, we get hit with a tearjerker because Spider-Man tells us it is Valentine's Day and he doesn't want to be anybody's Valentine. The reason why is because of how much he misses Gwen Stacy, the woman he loved who died thanks to his battle with the Green Goblin. Then he tells us that he is going to tell us the story about how Gwen Stacy and him had fell in love. He jumps back to the day where the Green Goblin had figured out that Spider-Man was Peter Parker. Of course, this was huge back then because the Green Goblin was the first villain to find out that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Also the fact that Peter Parker, it was one of his worst days because Green Goblin attempted to kill Spider-Man right then and there. After he had killed Spider-Man, he was going to go and kill everyone Peter Parker loved. Of course, we know that with Spider-Man telling us that this took place in the past, Spider-Man was able to break free and fight the Green Goblin, which of course began a battle all over the warehouse, and the warehouse caught on fire. Then a few explosions go off in the building to send the Green Goblin flying. With the Green Goblin being sent flying all over the building, well, of course, he is knocked out temporarily, and Spider-Man wakes him up. Spider-Man finds out that the Green Goblin is Norman Osborn, except Norman Osborn has no idea why he is wearing the Green Goblin outfit and why he is in this warehouse. He basically had amnesia. I just butchered that word, amnesia. Whew, sorry y'all. After being knocked out, to Spider-Man, that night the Green Goblin died because Norman Osborn forgot that he was the Green Goblin. Of course, Spider-Man was wrong. Of course, this leads into Peter Parker going to the Daily Bugle, where he is confronted by J. Jonah Jameson and Robbie Robertson. Word got out about Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin incident. Norman Osborn supposedly defeated the Green Goblin, but he was badly injured and he's in a hospital. Now the Daily Bugle needs a photo. Lucky for Peter, he can get in the hospital because he is a friend of Harry Osborn. Now when he gets there, this actually begins the bond between Harry Osborn and Peter Parker. Before this, Harry Osborn really did not like Peter Parker that much. He did not hate him, but he did not truly like him. Just Peter being there makes Harry like him more. Now, when Peter leaves, of course, that is when Flash Thompson and Gwen Stacy arrive at the scene. We see here that Peter Parker was able to catch the eye of Gwen Stacy. This is kind of telling us that she is interested in Peter Parker now. and Jeph Loeb quickly builds up the idea of Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy being together. It all starts with the idea that Peter Parker wants to get a motorcycle, except of course he has no money. Lucky for him, Aunt May has some money she used to save with Uncle Ben, and she gives it to Peter Parker, which does give him the ability to go buy the motorcycle. Now, of course, if you are Peter Parker, you want to show off your new ride, especially to the girl you have a crush on. So he goes to the school, pulls up on Harry Osborn, Flash Thompson, and Gwen Stacy, which of course catches the eye of Gwen Stacy, whom she asks to ride on the back of the bike with Peter Parker. He agrees. He's not going to say no to the girl he has a crush on. Now, at the same time, he is giving her a ride around town on his motorcycle. At the home of Aunt May, there is another woman who is interested in Peter Parker and was looking for him. Aunt May tells her that he is not here at the moment, and of course we know who this is. Now we have Jeph Loeb, who gives us the bad guy of the story. We don't get to see who it is just yet. We only get a glimpse of him in this section. He comes after Peter Parker thought it would be a good idea to get a newspaper from a newspaper stand that is talking about how the Green Goblin is dead, which of course we know he is not. But after Spider-Man leaves, that is when we see our mysterious villain hiding in the shadows, and we have no idea who it is. Then we get a classic scene where you have the two people who are interested in each other, except something happens that keeps them from being together, because we see Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker working together in science class, and Gwen is trying her best to make plans to have a night alone with Peter Parker. Before Peter is able to make his move or even say yes to what Gwen Stacy is trying to do, Flash Thompson kind of ruins their plans by stepping in and sending Peter Parker away. The next person we get to focus on is the Rhino, and can I say, Rhino is one of my favorite villains. I honestly don't know why. Something about the Rhino is cool to see, but of course Rhino is causing havoc in the city. Works for Peter Parker because he needs some money, so why not take some pictures of himself being Spider-Man and fighting against the Rhino. At this point in Marvel Comics, Rhino wore a suit that was tough as a rhino's hide. Spider-Man could not actually hurt him with the usual punches and kicks. He had to make Rhino run into things to knock himself out. So that is what happens. And Spider-Man tells the police he will be right back. There is a good reason why he is leaving the Rhino right now unconscious. The reason why is because he is meeting up with Kurt Connor, aka the Lizard. Now of course, he was the Lizard at one point, but thanks to Spider-Man, he was able to turn him back into normal. With Spider-Man coming here, he is hoping that Kurt Connor can make something that can get rid of Rhino's suit hide. These two were able to make something real quick, and Spider-Man leaves. Also to point out that Kurt Connor's family, his wife and kid, do not live with him currently. They do stay in Florida, and that is something important in this book to remember. Now of course, Spider-Man goes back, and this leads into a whole fight between the two of them. Spider-Man is actually toying with Rhino first before he uses the new web fluid Kurt Connor made for Spider-Man. As we can see, Rhino's suit begins to fall apart thanks to the web fluid that he used. Seeing this scene, it is actually hard to build my case that Rhino is one of Spider-Man's best villains, because honestly, this is a funny scene. But Spider-Man does win this battle and leaves with Rhino defeated. Then to make Spider-Man love life even more interesting, well, you have Spider-Man get home and change back into being Peter Parker, where he is greeted by Aunt May, who tells him about another girl she wants him to meet. Of course, we know this person is the one and only Mary Jane Watson, explaining that this was the first time he met her and he was quickly attracted to her. I have no idea why I say attached. He was attracted to her. Now, folks out there, when it comes to your dating life, Don't bring the hot girl your aunt just introduced you to and take her somewhere where your actual crush would be at. The reason why I say that is because Peter Parker actually takes Mary Jane to the same spot that Gwen Stacy, Flash Thompson, and Harry Osborn are at. When everyone sees her, they are so surprised about how attractive she is. But they are even more surprised to find out that she is with Peter Parker. Of course, you can tell that Gwen Stacy is kind of jealous of the fact that Peter Parker is with Mary Jane and not with her. So this makes things harder for Peter Parker, to be honest. Luckily for Peter Parker, something happens that gives him the ability to leave, which of course we find out that Kurt Connor has turned into the Lizard. That gives Peter Parker the chance to leave, but Mary Jane wants to go because Peter Parker told her the reason why he is going is to take pictures and she wants to see her new man at work. Of course, you have Peter Parker say yes to let her go, but he knows that he has to be careful because now he's putting her in danger. We are going to skip over the page where she was able to help Peter Parker sneak into the crime scene, because all it did was give him the ability to change into Spider-Man when no one was looking. Now, when Spider-Man gets inside the subway station, he finds the wife and son of Kurt Connor. They tell him that one moment they saw Kurt, the next he was gone. The reason why is, again, he turned into the Lizard. So you have Spider-Man go and try to find the Lizard to bring him back in. This section gives us the moment to see Spider-Man fight against the Lizard, and I want to mention that when it comes to the Lizard, you have to remember that it's kind of like the Hulk situation, that this is a completely different persona for Kurt Connor. The Lizard has a mind of his own. Now, the Lizard was able to get away, but of course, this is not the end of the fight between these two, because Spider-Man had a good idea where the Lizard would go next, which is the lab of Kurt Connor's. So when Spider-Man gets there, of course, he finds the Lizard. So round 2 begins between the two of them. Now, to make things harder for Spider-Man, well, Kurt Connor's family is knocking on the door looking for him. So Spider-Man has to hurry and find the cure for the Kurt Connor Lizard situation and give it to him before his family sees him as the Lizard. By the time they walk into the room, Kurt Connor has turned back into his human form and Spider-Man leaves with the day being saved. Now, to end this day, when he gets home, he finds Harry Osborn chilling on his Aunt May's porch, which makes Peter Parker think that something must have happened to Norman Osborn, since he is in the hospital. Except this is the moment that we all know about. It is when Harry Osborn asks Peter Parker to be his roommate, that the rent is free because Norman Osborn owns the building. Peter Parker is confused on what to say because he is afraid to leave his Aunt May behind. So Harry Osborn says he will give Peter some time to think about it before he leaves. Harry tells Peter Parker that he finds Mary Jane attractive and wants to ask her out, even more now since Peter said him and Mary Jane are just friends. The next day, we pick up with Aunt May and Peter Parker talking about the idea of Peter Parker moving out of his aunt's house. Of course, this was huge back in the old days because this was the first time Peter Parker would not be living with his aunt. Also, the fact that Peter Parker was scared to leave Aunt May alone, except he knew that sooner or later he would have to leave his Aunt May. She surprised him by telling him that she overheard him and Harry Osborn conversation. She thinks it would be a great idea for him and Harry to live together. Now we pick up with another Spider-Man villain, which of course is the Vulture, where the original Vulture, Adrian Toomes, is having a heart attack. Now he is confronted by Blakey Draco, who we know becomes the second Vulture. The way he becomes the new Vulture is by begging Adrian Toomes to tell him where he hid the Vulture tech at. So of course you have Adrian Toomes tell Blakey Draco where the suit is hidden. Getting back to Peter Parker and his crazy love life, that is when we see him and Aunt May going to visit Anna Watson's home. Of course, the aunt to Mary Jane in the place Mary Jane lives at the moment. Now, this is the moment Peter Parker finds out that Harry Osborn had asked out Mary Jane and they are going on a date. The reason why I say that is because Harry Osborn pulls up in his car to pick up Mary Jane. Now, Peter doesn't say anything about Harry and Mary Jane dating, except he tells Harry that he will accept the offer to be the roommate of Harry Osborn. Now, this is the moment we see Blackie Draco being able to find the Vulture tech, and of course, he gets the idea of becoming the new Vulture. We then learn that our mysterious character, who is going to be the bad guy of this book, had made a deal with Blackie Draco. We learn the deal that Blackie Draco and our mysterious character made was for Blackie to become the new Vulture and go after Spider-Man. That is when we see Spider-Man heading over to his new apartment he got with Harry Osborn. Also, that Harry Osborn had invited everyone over: Flash Thompson, Mary Jane, and of course Gwen Stacy. The problem for Peter is that he is unable to go and join the party because he gets attacked by the new Vulture, and this fight does last for a few pages, but also to show that Spider-Man wasn't ready for a younger and faster Vulture. So this section ends with Spider-Man actually losing this battle and falls on top of another rooftop. Now quickly, Peter Parker was able to regain a strength to get out of the snow and get inside his new apartment. It's just that when he gets there, everyone is gone except of course his new roommate Harry. This is where we see that Peter Parker had gotten sick with a cold because he lay out in the cold for so long. This cold is actually going to make Peter Parker's love life even more stressful. Either way, Peter Parker goes into his new room and literally crashes to get some rest. Then we see that our mysterious villain who made the deal with Blackie Draco was hoping to find a lifeless Spider-Man outside in the cold, except he just finds a spot where Spider-Man was laying at. The next page, we see Adrian Toomes in the hospital, where we find out that he did not have a heart attack. Instead, he was poisoned thanks to Blackie Draco. We learn this thanks to our mysterious villain coming into the hospital room and giving Adrian Toomes the cure so there can be two Vultures now. Getting back to the stressful life of Peter Parker, we see that right now he is laying in bed sick, trying to recover, except that is when he is greeted by Mary Jane, who thought it would be a good idea to bring him some soup. Remember that just in the last chapter, she went out on a date with Harry Osborn, but she is here trying to give Peter Parker some soup, and then of course you have Gwen Stacy walk into the room to read Peter Parker a book that his uncle used to read him when he was younger. The only way Gwen Stacy was able to find out this was because Gwen Stacy had visited Aunt May. Now Peter Parker is lost on what to do in this situation. So he just asked both ladies to leave as a way to say he can get some rest. Now of course, this makes both ladies upset because they both went out of their way to try to impress Peter Parker and take care of him as well. Now the real reason why is because outside of his apartment building, well, he sees the Vultures flying around. So when Gwen Stacy had that book she wanted to read to him, it reminded him about his uncle, except the moment his uncle died and Peter let a thief walk by him. Remember that when it comes to Peter Parker, if he had stopped that thief from getting away, his uncle would not have died. So when he saw the Vultures and thought about his uncle, he knew that he had to stop them, which he does go out there to fight the Vultures. And this battle is pretty even between all three sides. Remember that the Vultures are not on the same side because Blackie Draco was the one who poisoned Adrian Toomes. So Adrian Toomes is here to actually kill Blackie Draco. Now this leads us into a huge moment for the character Flash Thompson, which helps build his character development. The reason why I say that is because Flash Thompson is outside mad and walking around after being turned down by both Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy. Except thanks to the fight between Spider-Man and both of the Vultures, money falls from the sky and lands in front of him. Flash Thompson thinks he should take the money to make his day better, except Flash Thompson was saved by Spider-Man because more debris was going to fall on top of him. Spider-Man then has a talk with him, and this is great for Flash Thompson because even though Flash hates Peter Parker, he loves Spider-Man. So when Spider-Man tells him to give the money over to the police, Flash begins to think about the idea of him needing to move on with his life and do more with his life. You have Spider-Man go back up into the sky to fight against both of the Vultures, where this fight doesn't last that long. You have Spider-Man being able to take care of both of the Vultures in one single move, and the day is saved. So this is the end of the Vulture's problem we got in this book. Now for Flash Thompson, this is the moment you have Flash Thompson announce to everyone, this includes Peter Parker as well, with him being saved by Spider-Man, he is going to join the army. So this was the thing in Spider-Man comics that had removed Flash Thompson for a moment because he had joined the army. Except outside of the building, our mysterious character who has been stalking and wanting to kill Spider-Man had found a piece of the Spider-Man outfit and was able to follow the scent of Spider-Man to, of course, the apartment of Peter Parker and Harry Osborn. So now our mysterious character knows that Spider-Man lives in that apartment. The next chapter opens up with our mysterious character watching footage of Spider-Man fighting against the different villains from his rogue gallery. Now at this point, it was kind of obvious who the mysterious character is. It is, of course, Kraven, but now they don't show us Kraven here. They are trying to still have the effect that we don't know who it is, but the way he is drawn in the shadows, we know that it is, of course, Kraven. And we're going to see him fight against Spider-Man very soon in this book. Now back to Peter Parker in his crazy dating life, we see him holding a Valentine's Day card that lets us know that someone had asked Peter Parker to be their Valentine, and Peter thinks it must be Aunt May. We know it has to be Gwen Stacy or even maybe Mary Jane herself. We learned that tonight they are going to have a party to send off Flash Thompson since he joined the army. Except this is the night you have both Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane both there, and of course dressed nice for the occasion. So Peter Parker, this could be a very interesting night. When Peter goes back to check up on Harry Osborn, that's when he finds out that Norman Osborn called. For some reason, he wants to stop by to check up on Peter Parker and Harry Osborn, but he is more excited to see Peter than his own son Harry. Peter can see that Harry is somewhat bothered by it, but at the same time, Harry wants to focus on the party celebration they are having for Flash Thompson. So they kind of leave it at that and go join the big party. Remember, when I said that our mysterious character had the scent of Spider-Man, well, this is the moment they let us know that it is Kraven the Hunter who was the person who has been trying to capture Spider-Man. Now, this is also the moment you have Flash Thompson try his best to stop Kraven. But of course he fails. Now you have Kraven actually grab Harry Osborn thinking that Harry is actually Spider-Man. So you have Kraven grab Harry Osborn and leave. Which this means that Peter Parker has to change into his Spider-Man outfit so he can go chase down Kraven. So of course we get the classic Spider-Man fight between him and Kraven. You have Spider-Man try his best to fight against Kraven and at the same time trying to save Harry Osborn from Kraven. Now, this is the moment you have Norman Osborn walk into the room and show us that he was heading towards Peter's and Harry's apartment. This is a very important moment because you have Kraven see Norman Osborn and tell us that he looks familiar. Right after Spider-Man had punched Kraven a few more times, you have Kraven pass out, but he tells us that the Green Goblin was the one who gave him the contract to kill Spider-Man. Kraven always honors his contract. Harry Osborn does take Norman Osborn away so he can rest. Spider-Man, of course, leaves the scene of the fight. This leads up to the moment we get to see the first kiss between Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker, because it takes place when Peter Parker was changing into his regular day clothes, except you have Gwen Stacy walk into the room right when he finished changing, and she sees the Valentine's Day card that she left him, letting us know that she was the one who sent it to him. And this is her asking Peter Parker one more time for him to be her Valentine's. This ends with Peter Parker and her kissing and him telling us how this is the moment they fell in love. Of course, this moment ends with Peter Parker showing us that he is done recording his message for Gwen Stacy, the woman he loved, the first woman who actually made him feel loved. Even though Mary Jane overheard him talking to the tape recorder, she feels bad for her husband because she knows how much he actually cared for Gwen Stacy. She came before Mary Jane. So the book ends right there. The reason why I feel like Hulk Gray does not get much love like Spider-Man Blue, Daredevil Yellow, or Captain America White is because it is written differently. The others were written in more of a love letter kind of way, where Hulk Gray is more of Bruce Banner meeting up with Leonard Sampson, who is a psychologist and has been a longtime friend of Bruce Banner for years. Now, Leonard actually was affected by gamma radiation as well. He gained super strength and green hair. Either way, at this moment, Bruce Banner came to Leonard to talk because, as usual, Bruce is having a hard time dealing with the Hulk persona, where Leonard reveals that he has a file on Bruce Banner, where he shows photos of General Ross, Rick Jones, and Betty Ross, which leads us into a conversation about the first time Bruce Banner turned into the Hulk. Of course, we get a crash course on what happened when Bruce Banner was hit with the gamma bomb. Of course, he went out to the testing site to save Rick Jones, since Rick Jones was just chilling out there in the middle of the field. So Bruce Banner went out there to grab him and try to get him into the safe zone. Now, Rick Jones was of course able to make it into the safe zone, except Bruce Banner was of course unable to make it, and we all know the outcome of that. This gives us the chance to learn more about the relationship between General Ross and his daughter Betty Ross. When we find out that after the bomb had gone off, the big question that is going around at the moment is, where is Bruce Banner? Apparently he and Rick Jones are missing and everyone is freaking out, especially Betty Ross. This is the moment General Ross starts to think that maybe Bruce Banner and Betty Ross have some kind of relationship. Also, he treats her in a way that to him, with her being a girl, she is really unfit to handle this situation and also allowed to be around the military base. We then find out that Bruce Banner and Rick Jones were able to find a doctor somewhere away from the military base to see if he is okay, because Bruce Banner was hit with a high amount of gamma radiation, where the doctor tells Bruce and Rick that Bruce is surprisingly okay. even though he shouldn't be, and this leads into the first moment the Hulk appears. To Rick Jones, he's not taking this seriously. With Bruce being hit with the bomb, the military is going to be testing him and asking questions about what the gamma bomb did to him, which makes Bruce Banner snap, and of course, we all know he turns into the Hulk. Now, for you new comic book readers out there who did not know about this, Hulk was originally gray, not green. Now, in the comic book world, the reason why Hulk was gray has changed over the years. In reality, the reason why he went from gray to green is because there were printing problems in the early days of Hulk comics. Getting back to the story, we see that after Bruce Banner turned into the Hulk, he actually doesn't attack Rick Jones. Even though Rick Jones is the reason why he turned, the Hulk just wants to be left alone, so he leaves. Which of course leads up to the moment where Hulk runs into the army for the first time. This is Jeph Loeb telling us that this is technically the first time the Hulk fought against the military. You're going to see why we were not told about this certain story. Either way, it is the moment the military learned about the Hulk and also learns how difficult it is to take down the Hulk. Now, Hulk does not kill these guys. He really more or just tries to protect himself from them and also subdue them so he can be left alone. One of the main focuses of this book is that the Hulk really wants to be left alone, and that is it. Except of course, since he is a monster, he does not get left alone. To close on the first chapter of this book, we see that General Ross to lock the doors while he and the military try to take down the Hulk. We see that after General Ross left, the Hulk is outside looking for Betty, which of course he sees her and makes him stop in his tracks. So getting into the second chapter of the book, we see the Hulk actually go and knock on the front door of Betty Ross' home. At first, she does not open the door, but of course she does. This is the first moment the Hulk have met Betty Ross, and there is no moment here that says she quickly figures out the Hulk is Bruce Banner. Instead, it is more of she sees the Hulk as a monster, and when the Hulk tells her who he is, she remembers her dad left to go get a team formed to chase the Hulk down. Plus, the military thinks the Hulk did something to Bruce Banner, and Betty Ross knows that too. Then Hulk tells her how he hates Bruce Banner, which makes her pass out in the arms of the Hulk because she is very worried about Bruce Banner. Right after she passes out, of course, the Hulk is greeted by General Ross and a team of military people he had put together to put down the Hulk. This moment here gives us the first time we see how determined General Ross is to put down the Hulk, where you could say it is because the Hulk is right now holding on to Betty Ross. It is also the fact that the Hulk is a monster that needs to be put down. Now, the team General Ross had put together is nowhere close to being able to stop the Hulk with the weapons they brought. So you have the Hulk stop and put down Betty Ross and then begins to fight against this military team. The battle doesn't last that long, and we see the Hulk actually leave again because again, he just wants to be left alone. This leads us to another moment where we continue to learn more about the relationship between General Ross and Betty Ross, where General Ross tells us that he loves Betty and he loved his late wife, except he was hoping that they had more children. Mainly, he wanted a boy so bad. Also that Betty Ross wanted to be a soldier or activities that to him are for boys. So he stopped and kept her away from things that the world looks at as a hobby for men. He is also hoping that Betty Ross knows why the Hulk came here, except she pretends to be asleep because she supposedly had taken a pill. Of course, we focus back on the Hulk, where we see Rick Jones finding Bruce Banner passed out and back in his human form, where you have Rick Jones actually show Bruce Banner how much damage he had done when he was the Hulk. So the question is now wondering what they can do with the Hulk. The army will come looking for him because of how much damage he has done. Rick Jones is talking about taking Bruce Banner to his aunt's house, but Bruce Banner tells him that he knows a place they can go to. We see Hulk go to a small cave, where in this cave there is this impenetrable room. The goal is for Bruce Banner to lock himself in the room. He asks Rick Jones to not let him out unless it is him talking, basically saying, if you hear the Hulk, don't you dare open the door up. So Bruce Banner goes inside the cave, and Rick Jones does lock the door. As soon as Bruce Banner is inside, of course, he turns into the Hulk and tries to break out of the room. For Rick Jones, it is hard to hear his friend being the Hulk and trying to break out, saying that once he is out, he is going to smash Rick Jones. Rick Jones just sits there and cries. Some time has passed by, and we see the Hulk is back out, and this time we see him back in the desert again. This time he had found a rabbit, and we see him thinking that this rabbit is his new friend. This becomes a lesson for the Hulk, because while holding on to the bunny, well, he ends up killing the bunny. The only thing Hulk wanted here was a friend, except he had to learn how to control his strength, because thanks to him not being aware of his strength, he ended up killing the bunny. So now with him being alone again, well, he goes on a rampage and leaves angry. Remember, that's very low. It still is sometimes throughout Marvel Comics, except throughout time, he slowly learns different things. So what happens next is that we pick up with Rick Jones and we see him being captured by the military. This gives us a moment to see that Rick Jones is very loyal to Bruce Banner and keeping his secret about where he is and that he is the Hulk. Because remember that the military still has no idea that the Hulk is Bruce Banner. To them, it must be some kind of monster that appeared after the bomb had gone off. They still think Bruce Banner is missing. Either way, you have Rick Jones get taken back to the military base, and General Ross begins the process to interrogate Rick Jones, hoping to learn more about the Hulk. Rick Jones keeps saying that he has no idea about the Hulk, except there is a moment where Rick Jones let his anger get the best of him when General Ross says bad things about the Hulk, which he kind of admits that he knows who the Hulk is. Now the question for General Ross is, when will Rick Jones tell him everything he wants to know? Now there is a page where we see that General Ross leaves the room and walks into a different room. He is confronted by two people, one of them being Betty Ross and the other, well, you are going to see who he is here in a minute. Except we jump back over to the Hulk, because this is the moment where the Hulk finds the jacket of Rick Jones, letting him know that Rick Jones has been taken by the army. This makes the Hulk angry and decides to go get his friend back. This is going to lead into something big down the road here. So getting back to General Ross questioning Rick Jones about the whereabouts of the Hulk, that is when the Hulk appears through the wall, making a big entrance and begins the process of saving his friend Rick Jones. Except, of course, this is the moment he sees Betty Ross. Betty Ross being the one person besides Rick Jones that can really calm the Hulk down. Except this is Betty Ross angry again at the Hulk, because thanks to the Hulk coming through the wall, some debris hit General Ross in the head. Except the Hulk decides to grab Betty and leave. Rick Jones just walks out through the hole in the wall, but then we see our mysterious person walk into the room after everyone has left. This guy tells General Ross that he can stop the Hulk. Here comes the big moment I've been waiting to dive into, because when the Hulk gets somewhere, he tries to wake up Betty Ross after she passed out, which he is able to do, except she thinks it is Bruce, not the Hulk at first. Before we see her realize that it is the Hulk and not Bruce Banner, someone comes from behind and blasts the Hulk in the back, and we see that it is classic Iron Man. This is Iron Man wearing his classic Iron Man armor when he first became Iron Man. Remember, this story takes place in the very beginning of the Hulk, the birth of the Hulk. Now, the fourth chapter of this book is really more of a Hulk versus Iron Man chapter, but this is the moment I've been waiting to talk about, because this is Jeph Loeb stating that this was the actual first time the Hulk and Iron Man fought against each other. The reason why we never learned about this fight is because, well, it was kept a secret thanks to the military. It was one of those things the military did not want the world to find out. Really, that goes for Iron Man as well. Remember that early Tony was very cocky. He thought he could take down anything he came up against. This even includes the Hulk as well, because to him, the Hulk is just some monster in the middle of the desert. This fight with him should be wrapped up very quickly. Except the Hulk shows Iron Man that this is not going to be an easy fight like he thought it was going to be. The Hulk gets stronger. The Hulk won't stop until he feels like the fight is over. So for Iron Man, this is not going to be one of those one and done battles. This is going to be a lesson for Iron Man. With one single punch, and you have Iron Man realize how strong the Hulk is. When Tony decides to use some of his weapons on the Hulk, hoping that he will be beaten that way, he learns how durable the Hulk is. And Tony has to realize that this is going to be a losing battle for him. The only thing he can do is really just run away and grab Betty Ross, because there is no way to stop the Hulk. The problem is again that the Hulk won't stop until he thinks the battle is over, and it leads up to the moment you have the Hulk grab Iron Man, begin the process of beating down on Iron Man over and over again, making Tony Stark realize that he had truly messed up, and he is hoping that something or someone can save his life. Which he does get lucky that someone does come and save him, except the person who does is going to make the Hulk realize how much of a monster he is. See, the reason why I say that is because it is Betty Ross. She tries to stop the Hulk from basically killing Tony Stark, except the Hulk actually backhands her on accident and sends her flying. Then it leads to her hitting her head on the boulder, which she starts to bleed, and the Hulk stops what he was doing and see what he has done. So he goes over there to grab her and take her away somewhere safe, hoping that he can find a way to save the life of the woman he loves. After he leaves, you have General Ross find Tony Stark badly beaten and hurt, telling his team to leave Tony there and they must continue to find the Hulk and save his daughter. So with the Hulk hurting the woman he loves, of course, this leads to him thinking that it would be a good idea for him to get a first aid kit to help stop the bleeding. He goes to a nearby gas station and breaks into the building. With him doing that, the police of course get called, and when they pulled up, they are confused on what they should do with the Hulk standing in front of them. This huge monster who can easily crush them in a matter of seconds. The Hulk leaves without doing them harm, but still a funny moment. We then get this scene where the Hulk goes back to where he had placed Betty Ross after giving her her head injury. We see the Hulk try his best to patch her up with his gigantic hands, and of course, he does the best he can do in this situation. She wakes up to see what the Hulk tried to do and also realizes that she was taken by the Hulk far away from where she was last time, where she is hoping this is some kind of nightmare and that sooner or later she'll wake up from it. We all know that this is not a nightmare, but she is hoping that it is one. Hoping the Hulk is not real, and he did not just kidnap her to be with her. He does hand her some medication to help with the head injury. Now this gives us a moment where we see Betty Ross yell at the Hulk for everything he has done so far in this book. In 4 chapters, but like in the one day, this man has caused so many problems. At the end, she does patch her injury better than what the Hulk did earlier, but still, she is scared out of her mind. Then, her next statement is that she is cold, hoping that this will work and the Hulk will take her back home. Except for the Hulk, he wants Betty to stay with him. So with the lightning storm going around, he was able to start a fire by letting one of the lightning rods hit the wood, bring it back to her, and to the Hulk, he is doing a great job protecting Betty. Except she does not want to be there. She wants to go home, mainly because she is scared of the Hulk. Also, she is still worried about Bruce Banner because again, no one knows that the Hulk is Bruce Banner. The 5th chapter of this book is more of Betty Ross kind of opening up to the Hulk, explaining to him that she is scared out of her mind at this moment, that she understands the Hulk wants to protect her, except he is now realizing that he is the reason why she is scared at the moment. So when you have her actually break it down for the Hulk, that is when he realized that he is the problem. Except when he does realize that he is the problem, that is when you have General Ross appear, and this time he means business. This man is going to bring down the Hulk and save his daughter. Well, he is going to try to accomplish those things. The reason why I say that he is going to try to accomplish this task is because the Hulk instantly jumps on top of General Ross' helicopter and begins to trash it. This was not even a fair battle for General Ross, except this was done for a good reason. So we can have Betty Ross kind of begin the process of understanding the Hulk. Either way, you have the Hulk being able to tear open the helicopter and grab General Ross, letting him know that he has lost the battle. This of course gives us the moment where you have General Ross tell us in Hulk that he will never leave the Hulk alone, that the Hulk will always be hunted by him no matter what, and he will stop the Hulk. Hulk tells General Ross that all he wants to do is to be left alone, and that is it. Except General Ross cannot accept that, and of course it leads to Hulk actually thinking about killing General Ross to finally have peace. Except that is when you have Betty Ross come in and actually beg the Hulk not to kill her father, even though there are men who have Hulk in their sights, and General Ross even says go ahead and shoot them both. You have Betty Ross basically beg the Hulk not to kill her father. She begs General Ross' men to not to shoot. She even points out that if the men who have snipers are ready to shoot the Hulk, that their bullets Hulk life hard if the Hulk lives. He is so upset that his men are not trying to kill off the Hulk. He is upset that his men are not listening to him and listening to his daughter instead. Either way, you have Betty Ross continue to beg the Hulk to let her father go. The Hulk sees that what he is doing is upsetting her, and he does let her father go. Then he leaves. We jump forward in time where we see Bruce Banner return to the army base, and his goal is to make it seem the Hulk and Bruce Banner are two different people. He does not want them to think the Hulk is him. He does not want them to think the Hulk killed him. So he comes back and we see General Ross confront Bruce, which of course General Ross talks down to Bruce like he is some weak-minded person. You have Bruce just take all of the negative comments until his girlfriend Betty Ross stops it. She messes up and says that General Ross is just like the Hulk. To close, we jump back to the present day and we see Banner to talk to Leonard Samson. This is where Bruce tells us that the reason why he loved him was because she saw Bruce in the Hulk like her father. She saw all of them as monsters, which of course Leonard tries to tell him no, that is not true. Except for Bruce, it was the only reason why she liked him. So it made him upset, and then he turned into the Hulk, which of course he leaves to be left alone, holding the picture of Betty Ross. The reason why this is so important is because at this point in Marvel Comics, Betty Ross was actually dead. So it hurts even more. But this is So the opening of this book tells us that this is Daredevil thinking about Karen Page. For the ones out there who don't know who Karen Page is, she was the lover for Daredevil. He had others, but she was the one who died, and it really messed him up. To the point that after some time had passed since her death, he still struggled to move on with his life. He started to act differently, and of course, his best friend Foggy began to worry about him. Foggy tells him that maybe he should write a letter to Karen Page. Even though she is dead, he can write a letter as a way to express how he is feeling, also hoping that it will help him move on with his life. This is going to be a retelling on how he met Karen Page. So we jump back in time to where Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson were in college. Foggy is reading a paper about how great Matt Murdock's father is in boxing, telling us that his dad was popular. He was big around town. There is even a point where Jack Murdock takes Foggy and Matt out to dinner. We see him being able to interact with anybody. He is able to take Matt and Foggy out to a nice place. By this point, Matt is blind and has his enhanced senses, but of course, he is not Daredevil yet. Because remember, when it comes to Matt becoming Daredevil, Jack Murdock plays a very important role in that process. Jeph Loeb doesn't waste any time by getting us to the point that will make Matt Murdock become Daredevil, where we pick up with Jack Murdock having another one of his boxing matches, except when they get the chance to get a break, you have Jack Murdock manager tell him to take a dive, meaning that lose the fight on purpose, because this is where we learn that the reason why Jack Murdock is this famous boxer in the city is because there is this gangster named Fixer, who would fix the matches to easily give Jack Murdock wins. Now, Jack Murdock says he is not going to lose this match because his son Matt and his best friend Foggy are out there watching, meaning that he has to win this match, which he does win by giving the other guy a quick combo of punches. Now everyone is happy except, of course, the Fixer. This leads us into the sad moment that made Matt Murdock begin the path of becoming Daredevil. It all started with the fact that his father was killed. Matt tells us that he was at home when he heard the gunshot. He just knew somehow that it was his father that was shot. So he leaves the apartment, runs down the street to see that someone shot his father in the head. The last person Daredevil had in his life was technically family is now gone. The one person he looked up to as well. So again, this is the part that led Matt to become Daredevil. What really pushes him even farther into the path of becoming Daredevil is when we see the court session, where you have the two men who are responsible for the killing of Jack Murdock. At first, it seems that they are about to go to jail until their lawyer points out that no murder weapon has been found. They have alibis for their whereabouts, and the lawyer tricks the judge by making the judge think about why would these two men spend so much money into making Jack Murdock into a champion, only to end up killing him. So the case gets dismissed, so the men who killed Jack Murdock get to walk away free. Some time has passed by and we see that Matt and Foggy have both graduated from university. Of course, Foggy wants to begin to put their law firm together right at this moment. Except for Matt, he has a different plan, and we see him go home and put together the classic Daredevil outfit. This is the same one he wore in the early days of Marvel Comics, the yellow and red, but this is him becoming the character we all love and know him as. Of course, the second chapter opens up with Daredevil going after some of the men of the Fixer, trying to locate where they are at. And this is going to be the moment the city of New York learns about Daredevil. Well, not right here, because he's just beating up some of the thugs who work for the Fixer and the Fixer's partner. He is trying his best to find them. This is his only lead, and you do have the men of the Fixer tell Daredevil that he will be here any minute now. Literally a second later, the Fixer does appear, and his partner Slade. They tried their best to shoot down Daredevil, hoping to stop him. Again, this is the first time Matt Murdock has been out in the world as Daredevil. This leads into the moment you have Daredevil being able to beat down on Slade. Except he wants to use fear as a way to make Slade do what he wants to do, which is to go and tell the truth about killing his father. He starts with Slade first by making him scared and bringing up what the lawyer said way back then, how there was no murder weapon found. Well, there were some kind of nuts found around there, and Slade ate those kind of nuts. After explaining that, you have Daredevil tell him to go and testify for what he did. The Fixer, though, was able to run away while Daredevil was basically scaring the mess out of Slade, except Daredevil was able to catch up to the Fixer easily, and this chase goes all over the town, to the point we see the Fixer try to run into the subway hoping to lose Daredevil down there. For the Fixer, it won't be that easy though, since Daredevil is on a mission to give his father justice. So Daredevil literally chases Fixer all the way into the tunnels, thinking that he's about to get his hand on the Fixer, only to see the Fixer fall to the ground and die because the Fixer had a heart attack. Now, after the Fixer has died, you have the police arrive at the scene of the crime. This is why I kept saying this is the moment the world finds out about Daredevil, because to the cops, all they see is some man in a Daredevil outfit telling them that the man he is holding in his hand just died from a heart attack, and Daredevil leaves like it was no big deal what just happened. After that, we finally get to the point of what this whole book is about. Remember that this is Daredevil writing a love letter to Karen Page, who was the recent lover of Daredevil when this book came out. She died. Her death is affecting him big time in the present day. So he's writing the love letter to explain what made him Daredevil, why he kept pushing to go down that path. While being Daredevil, he met Karen Page, and she played an important role when it came to him sticking around as Daredevil. So at this moment, we see the Foggy Nelson was busy all day trying to find assistant for him and Matt's law firm. After interviewing so many different people, of course, he was unable to find one. When Matt walks in, well, Foggy did find one, and that person being Karen Page, saying this is the first time Matt and Karen had met. So after some time has passed by, we see that Matt, Foggy, and Karen are confronted by the Fantastic Four. Remember that the Fantastic Four came a little bit before Daredevil came around in comics. This is just him building some form of a bond between Reed Richards and Matt Murdock. Honestly, this is just a moment that will put Matt and Foggy on the map when it comes to lawyers looking for work. After the Fantastic Four leave, you have Foggy and Matt decide to celebrate the fact that they were able to get some work with the Fantastic Four. And you have Foggy suggest that they go to one of their old college bars to celebrate, one of those beatdown ones. We get a moment where we see Daredevil celebrating the idea of being a hero now, how he thinks about being on the same list of popular heroes in the world, like Thor or even Iron Man as well. Then he tells us how Karen Page stays on his mind, how when he thinks about her, he feels happy and just wanted to spend some more time with her, like he's about to do tonight. Now remember that Karen Page and Matt are not hanging out alone. They are with Foggy as well. And you can see here that Foggy is showing that he is interested in Karen Page. Except you can see here that Karen Page is not slightly interested in Foggy, which sucks for the man. But then you have the three of them get confronted by some guys who were trying to hustle them in a game of pool, thinking that with Matt being blind, that they'll be able to get some money out of Foggy, Karen, and Matt. And you have Matt at first act like he can't play pool since he is blind. Except that is when you have Matt show them up by beating them in their own game, which of course they were able to get some money out of these guys very easily. Of course, these guys do get upset with the fact that they had just lost money from Matt Murdock. So when Matt Murdock sends Karen and Foggy home in a taxi, that is when the guys appear behind him and ready to fight. Again, this is just a moment to show Daredevil abilities off. While fighting against these guys, you have Matt thinking back about what his father told him. That his father told him to never lead with his left, because if you do, then your opponent knows your moves right off the bat. Somehow that led into him thinking about Karen, how he did not want to tell her right off the bat about how he feels about her. After he beat these guys down, he does leave. Now you have Matt go meet Slade in person. Remember, this is the man who actually shot Jack Murdock. He worked for the Fixer, the one who had a heart attack. But then you have Matt ask Slade who the Fixer actually worked for, which you have Slade tell Matt that he will not give that information up. To Matt, that is strange because Slade should not be afraid to die since he is on death row for killing Matt's father. Where you have Slade tell Matt that he will not give that information up because the man who the Fixer and Slade worked for would actually end up killing Slade's children. So Matt has to leave without getting that information. When Matt gets back to his office with Foggy, that is when we are introduced to some random lady. This lady tells Matt and Foggy that she came here for their help because someone is after them. Foggy tries to comfort her, but unfortunately, she freaks out when she sees Matt and runs out of the room. Now, with Matt's abilities, he was able to tell that she was lying about something. He does not know what, but something is off about her. After some time has passed by, we then see everyone working for the night in Matt and Foggy's office. That is when we see someone walking up the stairs and walks right into the office of Matt Murdock, letting us know that Jeph Loeb is bringing in another character from the Daredevil comics. We do get introduced to the Owl. We talked about the Owl before. He is basically a mutant who has Owl's abilities. Also, he is big on trying to become a big kingpin in New York. Now, the first half of chapter 4 is more of Daredevil fighting against Electro. And I know what you are thinking. Usually, Electro is a Spider-Man villain. But to help build up the rogue gallery for Daredevil, Daredevil had actually battled against Electro before in his own comics. This is Jeph Loeb stating that this is the first time Electro and Daredevil had met in Marvel Comics. The reason why Daredevil and Electro are fighting is because when Matt Murdock went to the Baxter building to meet up with Reed Richards, because remember that Reed Richards had hired Matt Murdock to help out with some legal work. Well, Matt Murdock saw Electro in there, and of course the Fantastic Four were not there. So he thought, you know what, let me handle this situation. So of course you have Daredevil and Electro basically fight it out all over the city. And while he is fighting against Electro, someone who is a super villain, someone who can actually kill him very easily, while fighting against Electro, all he can think about is literally Karen Page, the girl he loves so much. Well, also the fact about him being up there on the list of superheroes if he takes down Electro. Karen Page is on his mind, but at the same time about him being a superhero. This battle does end with Daredevil being able to beat down on Electro and the day is saved. So you have Daredevil getting praised by some of the ladies who was there at the scene of the fight. Shifting the focus back on Karen Page again, we see her looking out of the window when Daredevil swings by the building, which of course excites her. But we see that Foggy Nelson does not like the idea of Karen Page getting excited about another man. Then you have Matt walk in and they continue to talk about Matt Murdock's alter ego. This begins a scene where you have Matt and Foggy kind of trying to learn more about Karen Page, starting with the fact that she has a boyfriend. Of course, she tells them no, which excites the both of them. Now they know that she is single. You have Foggy ask about bowling, hoping to have some alone time with Karen, except Matt agrees to go with them as well. Skipping over to bowling night, this is of course supposed to be a night for Foggy and Karen Page, except Matt is there, and you have Matt pretend that he can bowl since he is blind, as a way to get close to Karen Page. Now this whole time, Matt knows that Foggy has feelings for Karen. He must have, but it is him thinking of Foggy's feelings for Karen Page just as a small crush. We're going to see Matt is wrong about how Foggy feels for Karen, but we do see that Matt plans work and there is a brief moment that he is close with Karen Page. Of course, Foggy is not happy about that. Getting back to Slade, remember, since Matt captured him, for killing Jack Murdoch, Slade is on death row, so it is his time to die. Matt was invited mainly because this is the man who killed his father. Matt at first thought that he was going to enjoy this scene, watch the man who killed his father die. Except it didn't. It actually bothered him. And we learned that after the death of Jack Murdoch, Matt Murdoch never moved out of the home of Jack Murdoch. It was his way to hold on to a piece of his father, especially the chair that his father always sat in. When Matt Murdoch gets back to his office that he shares with Foggy, he runs into Foggy that is pacing around the office. Foggy tells Matt two things. The first being that he sent Karen Page to the office of the Owl, apparently to gather some paperwork. But he tells Matt that he plans to propose to Karen Page, which to me is a big skip in steps of relationships when it comes to him and Karen Page. Here we are though. Foggy Nelson is going to propose to Karen Page. With the 5th chapter, we see that some time has passed by, meaning that we are at a point where Matt and Foggy both realize that Karen Page is missing. Remember, she was sent by Foggy over the office of the Owl to take care of some paperwork, only to realize that she never came back. So we see Matt standing on top of a building and trying to use his enhanced abilities to hopefully locate where Karen Page is at. This is to show how much Matt cares for Karen and also how powerful Matt's enhanced abilities are. Because even though he is hearing a city full of people and in fact objects that are making sounds as well, he was able to pinpoint his hearing to listen out for Karen Page. When he hears her, this man runs towards her in a hurry. Now the reason why he was able to hear Karen is because she is talking to another woman, and we see that Karen is locked up in a cage. Now the woman Karen is talking to is actually the same woman we saw earlier who came to Foggy and Matt's office looking for help, but when Matt walked in, she ran away. So we see that she was working for the Owl and she basically tricked Karen in a way to get Karen Page locked up. Of course, after the lady leaves, that is when Matt Murdoch appears as Daredevil to save Karen from the cage, where you have him show off a little bit by bending the bars with his hands. Then he slowly carries her down, so it seems like a sweet moment. And even when he called Karen by her name, she is so in love with Daredevil that with him knowing her name, she does not think about how Daredevil knows her name. To her, she thinks he may have overheard her name being called. Sadly though, you have Matt tell her to leave now because the Owl has returned to the warehouse. So this is where we get the first fight between Daredevil and the Owl. Now Daredevil doesn't win this battle like he did when he fought against Electro, except this time he loses this fight. Matter of fact, there are only a couple of moments where it seems like Daredevil might have a chance to win this battle. Sadly, he doesn't. And there is a moment where it seems like the Owl might go ahead and kill Daredevil, only to see Daredevil being able to escape the chokehold that the Owl had on Daredevil, only to say that there will be a rematch because this battle ended in a draw. After all of that, we see Matt Murdoch and Karen Page talking about how Matt's alter ego Daredevil saved her life. Either way, this is a big moment because as they are reacting out the different fight moves that she saw Daredevil do, there is a moment where she lands in the arms of Matt Murdoch, where you can see the affection between the two of them. And this is some bad timing because as soon as it happens, that is when Foggy Nelson walks into the office. Remember, he was planning on proposing to Karen Page, but now seeing how she feels and acts around Matt, he knows that Matt Murdoch is the guy she wants to be with, so he leaves upset. With some more time passed by, we see that in the office of Foggy Nelson and Matt Murdock, we can see Karen and Matt showing their affection towards one another in the open, where Foggy can clearly tell they really do like each other. With the phone ringing, Matt and Karen are not answering it because they are flirting with one another, and you have Foggy Nelson answer the phone instead. This is the moment you have Foggy Nelson tell us that Matt and Foggy just got hired to represent the Purple Man. Now that name should sound familiar to you if you have watched Jessica Jones on Netflix or read the comics that are based on the character Jessica Jones. Either way, you have Matt can tell that there is some tension in the room between him and Foggy. So he decides to go ahead and head down and meet their new client. Except you have Karen Page also agree to go as well, so she can spend some more time with Matt. Now, the Purple Man has the ability to control people literally by looking at them. Well, his powers had varied over the years. Sometimes his powers work around the idea of him just being there, or he has to be looking at them. Either way, with Matt bringing Karen Page here, he was able to take control of her and the police officers to get him out of prison. When the Purple Man gets outside, Matt has changed into his Daredevil outfit, hoping to stop the Purple Man, only to have the Purple Man use more police officers and have them shoot at Daredevil to keep him busy so he can escape. So you have the Purple Man take Karen Page to a nearby hotel to, of course, use his powers for horrible things, where he thinks that he's in the clear now since Daredevil is nowhere to be seen. Except that is when Daredevil appears in the room and begins the process of beating down on the Purple Man. Now you have Purple Man use Karen Page as a way to distract Daredevil by making her jump out of the window. So Daredevil has to go and save her, which he does. But when he does, they begin to talk more, and when they do talk, it continues the idea of Karen Page falling in love with Daredevil. Now, after their conversation, you have Daredevil beat up Purple Man and hand him over to the police and leave. To wind down the story, you have Matt and Foggy talking in his office again, and this time about Karen, where you have Foggy telling Matt that he is not going to chase after Karen anymore, that he actually hated Matt because Matt was taking the girl he wanted. But of course, their friendship should not be destroyed because of a lady, except when Foggy tries to call a truce. That is when you have Karen Page walk in and tell them that she has a date with Daredevil, meaning that she lost feelings for both Matt and Foggy because she is in love with Daredevil. Finally, you have the book closed with Daredevil looking at what he did with some of his money in the present day. Before I tell you what he did, you have Daredevil tell us how much he misses both his father and Karen Page. But writing these letters actually helped him move forward with his life. We see that with his money, he had reopened his father's old gym again. So the book closes on that point right there. And this is where we are going to end today's video. So please hit that like button down below and also subscribe to the channel for more content to come in the near future. Also, any suggestions on books I should read? Well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know. Your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But I do hope you enjoy today's video. See y'all next time. Later. The book opens up with Steve Rogers and Bucky at the movies back before they had left for the war. Matter of fact, before Bucky became the sidekick of Captain America. We learn that at this point Bucky looks up to Captain America, but doesn't know that Steve Rogers is Captain America. To him, they are two different people, and Captain America is a cool person. Captain America and Bucky have this bond that could be said they are brothers, or maybe Bucky looks at Steve Rogers as a father figure. Either way, they are very close. Now, Jeph Loeb doesn't waste time getting Bucky to find out that Steve Rogers is Captain America, because when they get back to base, you have them say hello to their Sarge and go into their separate tents. That is when you have Bucky try to sneak into Steve Rogers' tent to find out that Steve Rogers is the person he looks up to, Captain America. This leads to Bucky running away scared, because Bucky knows that the true identity of Captain America was supposed to be a secret. Now, Bucky knows it feels like he may have messed that up. Now, Bucky trips over some tires, where Steve Rogers finds him and helps Bucky back up. This is the moment where you have Bucky ask Steve Rogers to be his partner. Bucky does not want to be left at the military base alone, while everyone is out fighting in the war. He doesn't want to lead aside of Steve Rogers, and you have Steve Rogers say yes. This tells you this book is a love letter in a way to Bucky. You'll see what I mean here in a minute. Now, you have Steve Rogers train Bucky. The reason why is because Steve Rogers asked the higher-ups about Bucky being his partner. So while Steve Rogers and Bucky waited for word to come back, Steve made sure Bucky looked great in front of the higher-ups. Also to prepare him for the war, because their enemy will kill off anyone no matter who they are. He needs to get Bucky to understand that. Of course, we know that Bucky will get the approval to be the partner of Steve Rogers, mainly because Bucky can be used as a way to get younger men to join the army and get teens to love Captain America. Either way, we get to see Steve Rogers hand Bucky a package, where of course there is a mask inside of it, which of course we get to see Bucky put on his classic outfit, where it leads to Captain America and Bucky getting word they are going out for the war. This leads us into the big moment, where you have Steve Rogers and Bucky going on their first mission, where we see them fighting against some German soldiers and they are kicking their butts. Except Bucky, being the new sidekick, he makes a big mistake. He is not taking the job very seriously, where of course a grenade is near a box of explosive items goes off, and Steve Rogers had to quickly make a move to save Bucky's life, where you have Steve Rogers begin to lecture Bucky for what he just did, being reckless in the middle of a war, and of course Bucky does not take criticism very well. Where you have Steve tell us that maybe if he was a little bit harder on Bucky, or maybe a little bit nicer to Bucky, Bucky would still be alive, meaning that he feels like he is at fault for the death of Bucky. Now, chapter 2 gives us a moment where we see Steve Rogers wake up when the Avengers have found him frozen and defrost him, brought him back to the world. And of course, he freaked out because the last thing he remembered was Bucky dying. And you had the Avengers trying to calm Steve Rogers down so they can tell him the big news, that he is no longer in the year 1945, that now he is whatever year Marvel wants to establish the moment Steve Rogers came back to the world, where you have Tony Stark tell Steve Rogers that he has something to tell him. We then see Steve Rogers at church, where he is confronted by Nick Fury, and we are establishing their long-term friendship. See, Nick Fury was also there back in World War II, and the question is how Nick Fury is still young. Well, the quick answer is that Nick Fury took the Infinity Formula, so that slowed his aging process down. Either way, you have Nick Fury trying to comfort Steve Rogers for what happened to Bucky, because again, Steve Rogers feels responsible for the death of Bucky. we actually get the chance to see Nick Fury back in World War II, but also we see him with his Howling Commandos. Matter of fact, some of these guys live in the present day as well, thanks to the Infinity Formula. Either way, we see him and his team being trapped by a bunch of enemy soldiers, where it seems like these guys may die by the hands of their enemy. But then they hear something coming from the distance. The question is, who is coming? Of course, it is Captain America and Bucky riding on a Harley and jumping into the mission, getting ready to attack the enemy. Now let me tell you now, Nick Fury could not stand Captain America and Bucky back then. Well, more to the fact, he can't stand the idea of people in costumes really. Either way, these two are what they needed to get the heck out of there before they were killed. So we are establishing the love-hate relationship between Captain America and Nick Fury. We continue to see the bond between Captain America and Bucky, but this time more of another disagreement between the two of them, where Steve Rogers is getting ready to go to a party and also talk to Nick Fury, where Bucky thinks that he will be going to the party as well. Steve tells him no because he is too young. Then we see Bucky kind of hurt Steve Rogers' feelings by saying there will be girls at the party. Steve is confused, what does that even have to do with anything? Where you have Bucky state because Steve used to be 4F, meaning that he used to be unqualified to be in the military. Because before the super soldier serum, Steve was super skinny and weak. So Bucky is stating that Steve had never actually talked to a girl like that before. At the party, we see everyone is having fun. We even see that Steve Rogers has some ladies interested in him. We then see Dum Dum Dugan get upset with the fact the ladies are more interested in Steve Rogers rather than him. So of course, this leads to the two of them getting into a small argument, which ends with Steve actually throwing Dum Dum Dugan out of the window and beginning a fight in the middle of the bar. Of course, Nick Fury was nearby and seriously upset with what he was seeing. After the bar fight, Steve Rogers, Bucky, and Nick Fury Howling Commandos are going on their next mission, which is to help save France. Well, help save Paris. Now they are flying over the ocean and they are trying to get there, except while flying over the ocean, that is when the plane is blown out of the sky. So with the plane falling apart into pieces now, everyone is falling to their death. And Steve Rogers sees his best friend Bucky fall to what could be his death. So for part 3, we pick up after the plane had exploded and everyone had fallen in the middle of the ocean, where we see that Captain America is drowning in the middle of the ocean, where we see that everyone has made it to the surface, but wondering where in the world is Captain America at. Bucky is freaking out because again, that bond he has with Captain America is close. Where you have Nick Fury trying his best to hold on to Bucky, Bucky is able to break free and swim to the part of the ocean where Captain America is at. He finds Captain America, but he is unable to pull him up because the shield is adding too much weight for Bucky to move. So Bucky knows what he must do. He must cut the binds that were attached to Captain America and leave the shield in the bottom of the ocean. So of course, you have Steve Rogers and Bucky getting to the surface with the rest of their team. You have Nick Fury begin talking about how they are not going to make it because they are in the middle of the ocean. They have no idea how far they are from the shore. Steve Rogers, of course, responds and says that they will make it if they keep having hope. Also, when Steve Rogers goes for his shield, that is when he realized that the shield is missing. Bucky tells him that he had no choice but to leave it, and Steve Rogers lets Bucky know that he made the right call. Now, of course, they use part of the plane as a way to stay afloat until they make it to the shore. We still have Nick Fury doubt the idea of him and his team should have hope that they will not make it to the shore. Of course, they do make it, and this gives Steve Rogers the chance to brag about whether he was right that they would make it. Now, when they get there, you have everyone kind of chilling around the fire, except we see Bucky having a conversation with someone else, where we learn he feels bad about losing the shield that was given by the president and Howard Stark, and now it is lost. Bucky feels like he might lose his job being the partner of Captain America, except you have Steve Rogers comfort Bucky and tell him that everything is okay. Now, of course, they begin to make their journey through the land they had arrived on. Of course, they run into a fog. As they are working their way through the fog, they run into a mountain. Everyone says they should walk around the mountain, and you have Steve say it is better to climb up the mountain. Nick Fury says it is hard to climb the mountain without pockets in the mountain that would give them the ability to climb. Nick Fury states it would be helpful to have that shield to make those pockets. That is when Namor appears, the king of Atlantis. Also, he and Captain America used to work together around this time period. He found the shield for Captain America in the ocean and gave it back to Steve Rogers, which now they can climb the mountain. Of course, when they get to the top of the mountain, that is when they are greeted by a tank that is ready to blow them right off the mountain. Now, while they're being held captive by some German soldiers in Paris, we see Steve Rogers talk about how he was nervous and scared about putting Bucky's life in danger once again. Except with Bucky being calm and believing in Steve will find a way to save all of them, it actually calms Steve down. He is no longer scared or worried about failing, that he starts to have hope again that he will be able to save the day. So that is when you have Steve Rogers make his move. So we see him make his move, and this is where we see Steve Rogers being able to take out every single of these men. While he was doing that, you have Bucky cheering him on, and again, it was seeing Bucky having faith in him that really motivated Steve to keep pushing forward, and everything is going to be okay. This leads into an awkward moment between Nick Fury and Captain America, because now they are wondering what they should do with their captives. Nick Fury is down to just throw them off the mountain and let them die, where Steve Rogers is more of not down and killing people. So he basically stops Nick Fury and then tells Nick Fury he has a plan on how they can sneak into the enemy camp, which is that they are going to use their enemy clothes as disguises. So we see them pretending that Nick Fury is a leader of a squad of German soldiers, and they were able to capture both Captain America and Bucky, and they are going to pretend to be their hostages. While they are walking through the trail that would hopefully take them to their enemy camp, you have Nick Fury realize that someone is here, and he begins to freak out, of course. That is when everyone sees a random lady appear, and the question is, who in the world is she? Now this is where we find out that she is not alone, because then her man began to attack Captain America and everyone else. So you have both sides fighting against each other, but we find out the reason why she and her group are attacking them, well, it is because they are dressed as Nazi soldiers. So to her, they must be Nazi soldiers. That is why they are attacking Captain America and his group. Except that is when you have Nick Fury stop everyone and explain that this is a French team they were supposed to meet on their mission. This is Jeph Loeb retconning that there was this French team that was kind of like Nick Fury's team that worked for the French army. They were known as the Cirque de la Revolution, and Marilyn is known as the gypsy of the team, where it is Jeph Loeb telling us that Steve Rogers had another love interest before Peggy Carter, or maybe at the same time with Peggy Carter. For right now, Steve Rogers and Marilyn do not like each other, but in the end, they will. Like I was saying in the beginning of this new relationship being built, they don't like each other, especially when Steve Rogers finds out that Marilyn threw off those soldiers that Steve Rogers and Nick Fury left tied up, because those men deserve to die for everything they have done to the people in France. Now we proceed past their argument and we pick up with Nick Fury and his team, Captain America, Bucky, and Marilyn and her team walking in the sewers, where we learn their mission is to free France from Germany because it has been taken over. Marilyn proceeds to tell everyone that they know who they need to stop to complete their mission. Of course, that person being Captain America's worst enemy, which is the Red Skull. As everyone knows, Red Skull is literally the arch nemesis of Captain America. Just like Green Goblin is to Spider-Man, Magneto was for the X-Men, Lex Luthor to Superman, and Joker to Batman, Red Skull is literally Steve Rogers' worst enemy. Red Skull explains that he was sent here by Hitler himself and that their goal is to burn down Paris, which of course you have Captain America get upset seeing Red Skull and he is ready to go after him. Except you have Marilyn stop Captain America, because to her, if he runs in there, he will get everyone killed. Except for Captain America, he is down with the idea of killing off the Red Skull here and now. If they do, well, that will give them a huge advantage in World War II. Their views are so different on how to handle this situation that they begin to fight against each other, and you have Nick Fury let the two of them fight it out for a moment until he decides they need to stop because they have made so much noise. Pretty sure some guards had heard the noise, meaning that they will have to leave before they are under attack. Now we see the groups go back to this church, where it seems like one, this is where you have everyone waiting out until they have a plan for how they want to attack the Red Skull. But two, at the same time, we see Captain America and Marilyn in her room. Now Bucky and his little friend are looking through the keyhole to see what is happening, when they see that Captain America is nervous because he thinks Marilyn is trying to make a move on him, but really she wants to talk and fix his shield. The reason why she wants to talk to Captain America is to explain what it's like to have the German army here taking over her country, because to her, Steve Rogers is too lighthearted. He doesn't have the guts to do what needs to be done, because she explains how Germany is trying to get rid of her country, her culture. They are trying to burn down everything about France. And Steve Rogers realized he needs to look through her eyes when it comes to the war, not his own. She even states it must be French army to save France. But before they can talk anymore, that is when they hear a knock on the door, letting them know someone was listening in on their conversation. Of course, we know it is Bucky and his friend. And so you have Steve Rogers open the door angrily and fast as well, which makes the door hit Bucky right in the eye. We then see everyone gather around the table because they have a plan now, where one of their men was able to get inside the base of the Red Skull, then was able to send information about a tunnel they can use to sneak in and stop the Red Skull. While their planning is going on, you have Captain America go check up on Bucky. We learn that Bucky thinks that Steve Rogers does not believe in him anymore because of hitting him earlier. And also Steve Rogers called him James, which is Bucky's real name. No one knew his name. And so it seems like to Bucky that he'll no longer be the partner of Steve Rogers after this mission. Of course, Steve is not done with Bucky. This leads us to the moment where you have everyone getting ready to take the secret passage to get behind the Red Skull group and take them down, and later on take care of the Red Skull. Except that is when Captain America realized Bucky is not there. And Bucky's friend tells Steve Rogers where he went. He went after the Red Skull himself to prove to Captain America that he can be trusted. Now, after that, you have Steve Rogers leave. That is when the team moves in without him, thinking that they can take care of everything on their own, only to find out they have been betrayed by the man they had supposedly on the inside. So they are captured by Baron von Strucker. Getting back to Captain America, we see him right now trying to rush to get to his partner. We learn through him again how important it is to keep Bucky alive. It is because he sees Bucky as a friend, a son, a partner, whatever you want to call it. Bucky is very special to him. But when he gets to Bucky, of course, he sees that Bucky had failed to stop the Red Skull, and actually the Red Skull was able to capture Bucky. So now Steve Rogers has to save Bucky from the Red Skull. With the Red Skull having a hold on Bucky, it really should put Captain America in a spot where he should not be trying to make a move on the Red Skull. Red Skull states that he will blow everything up if Captain America gets close. Except again, this is Bucky. Captain America will do anything to save his partner. Even though you have Bucky yelling out to Captain America to stop before he becomes the sole reason why France is burning, well really Paris, it doesn't matter. Red Skull crossed the line when he grabbed Bucky. Before we can see what is going to happen between the Red Skull and Captain America, we actually jump back over to Nick Fury, his team, and Marilyn and her team being captured by the Nazis and Baron von Strucker, where Baron von Strucker reveals that he knew they were coming because the man who they had on the inside betrayed them. Their guy believed if he had helped the Germans get Nick Fury, Captain America, and Bucky, they will leave France alone. Of course, it was a lie, and he was shot and killed. With his death, it gave Nick Fury, Marilyn, and their teams the motivation to stop Baron von Strucker, which of course they were able to do, but with a price, they lost one of their own. Focusing back on Captain America fighting against the Red Skull, we see what usually happens when it comes to hand-to-hand combat with the Red Skull, where you have Captain America being able to beat down on the Red Skull left and right. He does not care what happens, he only cares about saving his partner. But that is when we see the Red Skull fall to what would seem like his death, not because of the fall, because of the explosion from the dynamite he was holding on to. Either way, the Red Skull is defeated, and you now have Steve Rogers and Bucky falling to their death. Except they landed some kind of cushion that saved their lives. Nick Fury and Marilyn and their team greet both Steve Rogers and Bucky, where they let them know that everything is okay and no bombs will go off. Also, they were able to stop Baron von Strucker as well, so it seems like the day is saved. After all the commotion, you have Steve Rogers and Marilyn spend some time on their own. They of course finally kiss. Sadly, we never see her again after this book. This leads to Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos saying goodbye to both Bucky and Captain America. This is the moment that really established their friendship. You didn't get to see Bucky and Steve Rogers ride off into the sun as best friends, because that was just one of their adventures in the war. The war went on for years. Of course, we know what happened at the end of the war for them. Getting back to the days where Captain America woke up after being frozen, we see that Nick Fury had taken him to what were the presumed graves for Bucky and Captain America. They had statues over the graves to show honor to them. And you have Captain America break his statue because he should not have one. He came back to life. That is why he should not have one. We also see him feeling bad that he was unable to save Bucky from death. This story takes place in the early days of the Avengers, where he presumed that Bucky was still dead and not the Winter Soldier. It made sense for him to grieve for the death of his friend. And this is where we are going to end today's video. So please hit that like button down below and also subscribe to the channel for more content to come in the near future. Also, any suggestions on books I should read? Well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But I do hope you enjoy today's video.